welcome back to the Health Hunt podcast. I am joined by the lovely Kate Hewitt today. Say hello, Kate. Hello. Kate is also known as Kate Coaching on Instagram. Very Kardashian-esque with your KK.
Yeah, I actually am. Oh my god, alter ego.
Me and Kate met here in Bali. We've known each other on Instagram beforehand.
Yeah.
Just, like Insta pals. We're in the same industry.
Yeah.
And Kate came to Bali when she was very lost. We all were. She was freaking out, and it was so funny because she was genuinely freaking out, and I was like, oh my god, girl, this is so funny because I was literally you. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
honestly, if I didn't have you at that time, I would be at home right now. So thanks to Orla.
Tell them how you booked a flight home.
No, guys, full on booked a flight home. And it's so funny because literally just before we got on this podcast, I had said to Orla that I'd moved the flight that I'd initially booked home to December, and Orla was like, wait, what? You have a flight home? And I was like, yeah, the flight that I had initially booked home, so I need to move that again because now I'm staying, which is absolutely insane. But basically, when I met up with Orla, we went for dinner, and I was like, Orla, it's not for me. I'm not meeting anyone. I'm not meeting like-minded people. I feel so alone, so uncomfortable, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And I booked a flight home, and Orla was like, you have
what
not.
What are you at, girlie? Yeah. You haven't even experienced it. What were you, 3 weeks then?
3 weeks in.
3 weeks in, yeah. I was like, no.
Yeah.
3 months at least.
100%. As in, once I started talking to everyone about how I felt and that I felt so unsettled, so uncomfortable, everyone was in the same boat. Everyone was like, Kate, it took me this long to settle into Bali. Orla, you said it took you so long to settle in.
3 months.
Yeah.
3 months, yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm not alone in how I feel. And I was like, I need to give myself a chance. So we rebooked the flight. I changed the flight because I was like, oh, I'm obviously going to go home for Christmas. So re-changed the flight to the 8th of December, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to change that again because now I'm not going home at all. Yeah. And I finally settled in. Now it did take me a good 3 months before I settled in, but now that I am, I'm like, I'm never leaving.
I know.
Or else I'm at least not going back home anytime soon anyway.
Yeah, it's like Never Never Land, isn't it?
Literally.
Never getting out of here.
Literally.
I've actually made my decision that I am leaving. And when I say leaving, I'm like, I'll probably be back. I know I'll be back. I'll be back for most likely a retreat. I'll be back for different things along the way. Bali will always have such a special place for me. But for my base, I think I'm ready to move on. I think I'm ready for new challenges. I think I'm not growing in this environment anymore. I think it has served its purpose for me, and now I'm kind of very stagnant, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Earlier on in the summer, all I wanted was to be relaxed, comfortable, grounded. No more changing. I would change home every week. I was hopping from Airbnb to Airbnb, traveling on trains, buses. No, I actually never took a bus. Buses are planes and trains. And it was all I wanted. And I've done that now. And now I feel that it's just not lighting me up the way it used to. So my flight booked to Australia, and then we're going to see what happens from there. Not necessarily set on Australia, but the world is my oyster, as we were just talking about beforehand. Yeah,
exactly. As humans, we always just resist change, and we resist anything that's extremely uncomfortable. And I think as coaches in particular, it's definitely something we preach, obviously through if you're repairing your relationship with food, weight gain, any sort of change or discomfort, it's something we preach. You have to lean into the discomfort, in order to change. But I suppose it's the exact same thing when you're moving country, or if you feel like you're not growing somewhere and it's taking that step again, you're like, oh my god, I have to lean into the discomfort again. For you, Orla, you're booking that one-way flight again, and you're like, I've done this before, I know I need to do it. I know it's out of my comfort zone, I don't know what Australia is going to hold for me, but this is what I'm doing, and it's scary, and I don't know where I'll end up, but leaning into that discomfort, that's something good is going to come from it. That kind of way.
Yeah, we're all about that growth mindset, not the fixed mindset. And I recognise, I've done so many years of feeling that I'm stuck, feeling that I'm not growing, feeling that there's just, it wasn't serving me, my environment in any way, shape or form. So I've come to a place now where I do really really appreciate and value that expansion, you know, and really see that
100%.
that's important. And even if it's like a job or a relationship or whatever it is, like you need to be able to have space for growth in those settings as well.
100%. Like, I completely agree. And it's something as well, like, even when I was coming to Bali, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of pushing myself out of my comfort zone, but not really, because I was like, I knew it was somewhere I always wanted to go. And I wasn't scared, like, was not one bit scared. And then it was only until I got here.
Fuck!
I was like, literally like, shit. I was like, I am so out of my comfort zone. And I just didn't expect it. I was just like, oh, I'm grand. Like, I'll talk to that wall. Like, I was like, I'll be grand. Holy God, was I out of my comfort zone, like, for so long. And now that I'm back in my comfort zone again, I would say I am. Like, I'd say I'm very comfortable here now.
Yeah.
Very, like, grounded, working away, like, absolutely flying it, but I'm like ready to push myself again.
Yeah.
Like, ready to push myself out of my comfort zone again. I don't know where I'll end up, where I'll be, but I just
We were
know.
having some very exciting conversations before. So I
Yeah.
think this podcast will be out in January, so you might even see that we're on a plane somewhere else in
Somewhere
January.
else. Yes, that is the goal. Like,
That's
it's
a little teaser for now.
little teaser for now. We're scared, but we're
Shit.
excited.
Yeah. No,
We're
but,
excited, and yeah.
Well, yeah, no, it is all exciting at the end of the day, and it's important. We were talking about, like, we are in a bit of a fear mode at the minute. We're scared, we're scarcity, there's talks about fucking recession, this, that and the other. And you have to reframe that. I know, vomit. Like, we have to reframe that and look at it as like, okay, we've gone through struggle before, and we're going to talk a lot about that today with, like, eating disorders and relationship with food. We've gone through, like, the fucking depths of what we could possibly go through. This is absolutely fucking nothing. Of course it is worrisome. Of course money makes the fucking world go round, as much as people don't want to believe that. It is important.
It is.
We need to be able to be safe and secure and, you know, stable, and not feeling like we are not able to feed ourselves. You know, that's an important part of your mental health as well as your physical health. But at the end of the day, it's important to not let your brain run away on you and think that these kind of low-level fears and worries, not let them consume you, not let them take over, and really learn how to kind of process them and process emotions effectively.
Yeah.
But do you want to tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, your coaching, and your journey, I suppose, what has led you to here?
Yeah. So, hello everyone, I'm Kate, also known as Kate Coaching on Instagram, and I have been coaching people now for the last 2 years. I got into fitness, I would say, when I was... got into the gym, I'd say when I was like 15, 16, but before that I was always so sporty growing up, like always. Like, I was in athletics, rugby, loved horse riding. Yeah. Did you know that?
Rugby, no.
Yeah, played rugby as well, yeah. And like, loved horse riding. That was like my first love. So I was always really active, you know, always really active kid. And kind of got into the gym, I would say, around TY. So we went to the gym, we were brought to the gym in TY, and it was like my first time ever being properly in a gym. And I was like, oh my God, this is unreal. Like, we had so much fun, it was so good, we were showed everything, and I was like, I really, really like this. So I was like, I want to join. So I ended up joining the gym for 5th year of school. And then 6th year, I moved school. So I moved from Newport to Tutorial. It was like a grind school because our school was wild. It was unreal, like such good crack, but like I would have done nothing. Like, I would have done absolutely nothing for my leaving cert. Like, it was nothing to do with school, it was just me, myself. Like, I knew I would do absolutely nothing. So was very lucky to go to the Limerick Tutorial. It was like a grind school in Limerick, and didn't go to the gym, but we had like an hour in our day where we would go to TRX in town. It was like these TRX classes, and they were so good.
Oh my God, do you remember TRX?
Yeah. Honestly, like, they were so good though, and like, they were more so for our mental health. Like, everyone watching this who went to tutorial with me will know that we only had that hour from 5 to 6 of a break where we needed to burn off steam. Like, as in, it was completely for our mental health. Like,
That's
it really,
nice.
really was. And there was no real focus on dieting or anything like that. Because our main focus was our leaving cert. Like, none of us, we didn't have time to piss. Like, we literally were in school 9 to 9, and
9 to 9?
yeah, Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like Monday to Saturday, like we were in school Saturdays. Coming up to our leaving cert, we were in school on Sundays by choice.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah, insane. But yeah, like as in unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
really unnecessary, putting all this pressure on myself to get these points because I base my self-worth on leaving cert points, which I do not recommend. And that's a whole different story. But yeah, so exercise then wasn't really to burn calories, so to say. It was more so for like my mental health. But popping in and out of fad diets and things like that casually, because it was in school. Like I think I went to Slimming World when I was in transition year to lose weight. I didn't have any weight to lose. We were obsessed with dieting in school. Like all of my friend groups, we were all obsessed with it. Like, and didn't understand it, but like because we were doing like Slimming World and we were it was just insane. Like sinning food, all this, and we were like not obsessed with it to a point where we were like losing loads of weight, but like we were still actively trying to diet. Like we would always fail.
Talking about it,
we'd always fail at it. So like we'd diet Monday to Friday and then we'd literally overeat the weekend, go wild the weekend, and then Monday we'd be like, back on it now. But like we didn't really take it that seriously, you know. It didn't seem that it was going to affect us that much. But then once leaving cert finished, I was going into first year of college and drinking all the time, eating out, leading a really bad lifestyle. Wasn't really exercising as much as I would have liked, and my mental health started to suffer really bad. And I was like, no, something needs to change here. And I was like, okay, I'm going to diet and that's going to make me feel better. So I went through a dieting phase, and it was my first ever kind of like introduction to a proper dieting phase. Like I never heard the term. Was
this with a coach? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So never heard the term like calorie deficit before and stuff. Like I didn't understand anything around that. Like my idea of losing weight was like Slimming World, like burning off calories, things like that. But I didn't really. It was like eat less, move more kind of thing was my thing around dieting, but it wasn't. I didn't understand what a calorie deficit was, protein, all of this stuff. Yeah. So got this coach before going to Greece. That's when I wanted to start to lose weight. I was going to Greece for a summer, and I was like, no, I need to look. I was like, the only way I'm going to be happy is if I lose X amount of weight. Went to this coach and lost a lot of weight really, really quickly, and it was over 6 weeks. And lost a lot of weight, was going to the gym, and I was like, felt unreal in myself. Now, I lost a good bit of weight, but I didn't need to lose any more. And I left him. I was like, thank you so much. Like, whatever, 6 weeks was up. Lost a lot of weight through, like, restriction. Obviously, it was quite strict, the diet, but it was nothing crazy. You know what I mean? And then I took it upon myself that I needed to lose more weight. So this is when I was getting obsessed, okay? Not really knowing I was getting obsessed, you know, that kind of way, because you get this high from losing weight, you know, like where it's like everyone's complimenting you, everyone's like, you look unreal. I had abs, I was really lean, and then I just continued. So I never came out of the diet. So I continued to lower my calories, continued to over exercise, and I was getting off on this high of being lean before going to Greece, you know what I mean? But I didn't have my period. I lost my period.
What age were you then?
Was I 18?
Okay.
18 or 19? Lost my period. I think I was 18. And I didn't care. I just didn't care.
Sure, why would you, when we had painful periods back then, and like it was like a gift from God not having to have a period anymore?
I didn't care. I was like, I actually don't care. I was like, I'm lean, I have abs, I look unreal. Bear in mind that like I didn't care that I love food, like I'm such a foodie. I didn't care that I had to like count every single calorie. I didn't care that I was excluding myself from social occasions. I wasn't going out with my friends. I was completely preoccupied with food and exercise, like with every single calorie. But I didn't care because I was lean. I was like, I'm happy because I'm lean. And that lasted for a very short period. Went to Greece, ended up drinking and eating all around us over there, like naturally as you do. We were there for a summer working, but I was still obsessed with staying lean and was still waking up the next morning, going to the gym, burning off calories, eating like as little as possible throughout the day so that I wouldn't be bloated or so that I wouldn't put on weight. So wasn't really eating in Greece, like, you know what I mean? But I was like, I didn't care because I was skinny. I was like, everyone's complimenting me, like everyone went there like, oh my god, your body's unreal, your abs are unreal. People texting me, I was posting on Instagram being like, woo. But like the thing was, I wasn't eating. Like I wasn't eating properly. And yes, I was like getting off on the high of people complimenting me about how I looked, but it was when I came home that I hit rock bottom. Because it was back to reality, you know. It was like back home, everyone was going back into routine. I'd obviously naturally put on a lot of weight then when I did come back, because towards the end of the summer, say, like it was creeping up on me, like that I was obviously eating and drinking, it was going to creep up on me, the weight gain, and gained all that weight over summer and came back and didn't know what to do or how to deal with it. And I was like, I'm so unhappy. I never attached the unhappiness to basing my self-worth on how I looked or through all the alcohol I consumed and the extremely unhealthy lifestyle I was leading. I put it down to that I was heavier now and that I put on weight, and that's why I was unhappy. So went and dieted again. I went and did it again. I did it again, and then I did it again after that. I dieted again to make myself feel happier. That's when my eating disorder really started to become apparent. Like my binge eating, like I was binge restrict, and it was getting really, really bad, but I didn't care because I was going to be skinny again, and I did get lean again.
Were you counting calories at this point?
Obsessed.
Yeah. Did you initially start counting calories? Because I know you mentioned like you were weighing yourself on the scales. So were you doing the scales and calories, or
isn't this funny? The scales
never bothered you?
It never bothered me, and I never weighed myself really,
yeah.
Which is so strange. I think it's because when we were younger, my mum, I remember her. I think she was actually doing a yo-yo diet or something like this, and we had the scales in our house, and I just remember, I think she just threw them out. I think that was it. She's like, you don't need to be weighing yourselves or something like that. And then that was it. We
Queen.
never... Yeah. Yeah, and I was never obsessed with scales. Calories, obsessed. Was so preoccupied with calories. Like when I came back from Greece, that's when I started dieting again to be happier, to be in a leaner body. Was completely in a binge restrict cycle. Then put on weight again over summer again because I was going back to my life. You know what I mean? I was like, because I wasn't allowing my diet into my life, my whole life was my diet and being lean. So then when I eventually tried to live my life like over a summer where we're out of routine and there's social occasions and things like that, like I put on all the weight again, and it was that constant cycle. And then it got to the point after summer 2020 that I was like, oh, I'm going to do a photo shoot because that's going to get me really lean again. And it was this constant feeling the need to control how I looked for my happiness.
And with that chronic dieting, did you ever like intentionally have a phase of gaining or maintaining or anything, or was it just constantly, I'm on a diet or I've fucked the diet?
Yeah. It was that constant, didn't know where to go after a diet. Like, I diet, and that was my sole purpose. And then it was like the diet would never end. I would just say press the fuck it button, and that's what led me into like binging.
Yeah. And then you'd have to undo it to compensate.
Yes. Yeah. So like I'd binge and I'd go through binge restrict, like a binge restrict cycle, while I wasn't dieting. So that would look like Monday to Friday, try and control as much as possible, and then just binge at the weekend. And then it got to a point where my binging was way more frequent. Like it was like, I'd restrict, and then next thing, out of nowhere, it could be like a Thursday evening or a Wednesday evening, and I'd end up binging. And it was getting way more apparent the more I was trying to control my food.
And did you ever, like, for like compensatory behaviours, did you ever like purge, or was it literally just like channeled through exercise afterwards?
Yeah, so I tried to purge, I would say 3 or 4 times, so like make myself get sick. But it was mainly through burning off calories. Like when I actually think about it, like I remember there's so much scenarios, like it was always just burning off like hours of exercise to burn off all the damage I did. And I remember one particular day that I binged. It was over a summer, and I binged, and the next day I woke up and I remember crying, like bawling, crying, walking off, like to burn off, going for a walk. And I think I did something like 25,000 steps while crying.
Oh my God.
Because I was burning off my calories. And I was so sad, because I was like, am I always just going to be like this? Like, am I always going to be this person who just always binges and can't control their food? And I have to constantly burn it off. Like, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, I honestly felt like so alone. I was like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I was like, I couldn't fix it, and I didn't know what was going on. I just felt so alone. Like, I felt so alone in that moment and in that time, that I was like, and I didn't tell anyone because I was so embarrassed and so ashamed, because I was the fit girl. I was the girl with the abs. I was the girl that like everyone was doing. This was during like doing my live workouts and stuff. Everyone was doing my live workouts during lockdown. I was training to be a PT. Like I was so embarrassed. I was like, I can't. Like,
you had this like persona of what people perceived you as.
Yeah, I attached myself completely to the identity of the girl who's always so happy, bouncing around the place in her shed, like doing the live workouts, which I absolutely loved. Like that was something that like was like an escape for me, and I genuinely did enjoy every second of those. But again, like just attaching my entire identity to how I looked, like my worth. Like I was only worth something if I had abs and my entire appearance, like, and no one would value me unless I looked like that, you know.
And because you've had so much of your worth wrapped up in that validation you're getting from everyone in that identity, if you then change that and you come out and say, I'm actually not this person, you lose your worth and your identity at the same time.
That was the fear.
Like, and this is why it's really important to not tie like there's so many reasons, but this is a really important factor, is that you're not meant to tie your worth to how you look, okay? Yeah. And what's really important is like no one actually sees worth or value in you based on how you look. Like everyone, like you're like a fucking ray of sunshine. Like she's like a ray of sunshine. She's fucking mad. She always says she's half mad, but she's full mad.
Full mad.
No,
fully lost it.
But like the conversations you have, the way you laugh, you know, that's what makes you. But in those moments, in those headspaces, all you can see is that. Like, do you know how many calories you were eating at that point?
Like when I was binging or when I was restricting?
I suppose either or, yeah.
Either or, yeah. Like, so like when I was restricting calories, like I'd always try and stay anywhere between like 1,400 and 1,600 calories. But like, I mean to say the exercise I was doing in a day like was ridiculous. Like, insane. I was doing like 2-3 hours of intense exercise and then doing like 20,000 steps a day. Like, it was just absolutely insane. And then when I was binging, oh my God, like I could easily eat anywhere between 6 and 10,000.
Did you track your binge calories?
No, I didn't track my binge calories, but if estimate like
yeah.
It could have been anywhere between like 6 and 10,000 easily.
Okay. Within
like such a short period, you know.
This is what annoys me about these phrases. Like what you had in that phrase in your head, eat less, move more. Okay, yeah. So this is what fucks me off about these phrases, and they're very like you know, it's marketing, it's catchphrasy.
It is, of course
like,
it is, yeah.
Of course it could be to encourage people to like simplify it, and it's like, okay, just be in a calorie deficit and you can lose weight. But it's like, the personalization of that or the individual's situation could be very, very different. And if you're constantly telling them to eat less, move more, of course that didn't fucking work for you, you know?
It didn't.
And
you know?
this is where we have a misunderstanding of the baseline requirement of calories. So people always think you need to burn off all the calories you eat, okay? But the calories that you burn off are not just through movement, okay? You've got your baseline BMR, your basal metabolic rate, which is the calories you need to survive. Not for me to sit here and have a conversation with you, not to go for a walk, not to go for a jog, literally just to like make red blood cells, to breathe, you know, all those basic things that we do on a cellular metabolic level, okay? You have got that amount of calories, and that can be anywhere from 1,200 to like 2,000 calories for someone, depending on your height and your weight and your age.
Easily.
And people aren't even eating that, okay? And people don't realize if you don't eat that minimum amount of calories you should never go below, your body is not stupid, okay? Your body will adapt. Your body will shut down certain processes not essential to survive. Exhibit A, you lost your period. I lost my period as well. Your digestion could be fucked. Your energy's rock bottom.
Your personality.
Your mental health. Your personality, yeah. You've no energy for life.
When I actually think about it, like when I was doing my photo shoot prep in particular, like I was on placement, so I was teaching in a school, meant to be, and like I was doing my personal training course and I was training every day. Like I couldn't speak. There were some days I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk to anyone. I'd always snap out at people. My boyfriend at the time, I don't even know how like he dealt, because I just wasn't Kate. Like I wasn't myself. I was pale. I was freezing all of the time. I remember having like a hot water bottle always glued to me. And I just, I just wasn't me. You know what I mean? And it's frightening. Like it's so frightening. That time is so foggy in my brain. I don't really remember it. There's parts where it just seemed so... It seems so far removed now, but like if you asked me like specifics on that timeline of when I was doing my photo shoot, I can't remember. Like I can't remember because I was so low on energy and because I was restricting myself so much, and I was essentially like a robot, and that was all to mask my binge eating disorder, you know. Like it's just insane.
And was there a moment for you that you were like, okay, this is it, I'm changing, or someone said it to you, or how did you begin to take that step forward?
So I suppose after binge restricting for years, like I did it for Greece. I did it when I came home from Greece because I put on all the weight again. And I was obviously thinking the only way to happiness was by losing weight. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. Like I did it during the photo shoot prep. And what people need to like understand is that my binge eating was getting worse and worse and worse throughout this time. Okay, so I was trying to control the binge eating through food and exercise and through being disciplined. So that's why I did the photo shoot prep.
Fucking word discipline irks me.
Yeah, like that's why I did the photo shoot prep. You know what I mean? To control the binge eating disorder, you know, through food and exercise, thinking that was going to be the solution, even though it hadn't worked the previous 3 times. Anyways.
Make it make sense.
Yeah. You know, this is what you do. You try, like the more you feel out of control, the more you try and control. You're like, no, I can do this. Like through discipline, through a photo shoot prep, I can do this. So I did. Like I stuck to everything religiously. I did not binge. I'd say I binged once throughout that time period, which would have been over the course of maybe 4 or 5 months. And then it was coming up to Christmas when I finished my photo shoot, and I was dreading it. I had my 21st birthday, I had Christmas, and lo and behold, like I was trying to resist the binging. You know, I was like, no, I won't binge. So controlling every single calorie.
Did you diet and restrict through all of those events? Like your 21st, Christmas,
yes.
All that? Okay.
My 21st, I had just came out of a photo shoot prep, and I was made believe that I couldn't go because of the calories I was going to consume.
To your birthday?
Yeah. Guys, I remember putting on my 21st birthday dress, and like you can go back through my Instagram, you'll see pictures of it up, and I was like, I look so fat.
And you were so thin.
I was tiny.
But this is the psychological influence, I suppose, or effects that it can have on you. And I think that's a conversation that people don't talk about enough, is like being in a smaller body and having body image issues. And I guess it's kind of like thin privilege obviously has to be acknowledged, but at the end of the day, like, people do have struggles regardless of what their body looks like, because whatever shape you are, whatever height you are, because it's based on conditioning and it's based on how you feel about how you look as well. Like, I remember the same as you, being in a really, really small body, and I still felt like shit.
Yeah.
I didn't have the abs.
You feel even worse.
I didn't have the flat stomach or the abs that I wanted to. Even though if you looked at so a tunnel vision for getting abs, and if I took a step back, looked at the bigger picture, I actually would have saw how lean I was, how fucking tiny I was. But all in that moment I wanted was abs. All I wanted was the calorie count. All I wanted was the control. All I wanted was the validation, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't see anything else. And this is where the conversation needs to be opened for all body shapes and sizes
100%.
for body image.
Like 100%. Like, no one saw, everyone was complimenting me because I was in a smaller body. No one saw that I was binge eating all the time, that I couldn't be present for anything. For Christmases, for my birthday, it was so preoccupied with calories and food to a point that I woke up the next morning. I actually was home in bed and asleep by 11 o'clock because I couldn't handle the drinks that I had that night for my birthday, and was up the next morning and got dropped to the gym at 6 a.m. Out of like, oh yeah, I just want to train. Like, what? Like,
Hustle and grind.
yeah, to burn off.
Did you have all those
calories.
phrases in your head at that point as well?
Yeah, no, I was just like, I was so conditioned to a point it was robotic. Like, it was actually, I didn't even realise how detrimental it was. Like, I remember texting my mum being like, can you collect me from the gym? And she was like, why are you in the gym? And I was like, I didn't even know. I was like, oh sure, like, I was up. But like, it was that obsessive, and it was that like robot mindset. It was so like ingrained in me that I just didn't even think twice about like how insane that was. You know what I mean? But I suppose the moment where all of this had to stop wasn't after that. Went through that entire Christmas extremely preoccupied by food, had a horrific body image, was binge eating all of the time, and was just so sad. Like, I was so sad, and I knew the inevitable was going to happen again, where I was going to put on weight again, and I had to try and accept that, and it was going to be really difficult because I again was attaching my self-worth to how I looked, blah blah blah. And I just hit rock bottom with the binge eating. Like, it just got to a point where it was so out of control, and that it was completely taking over my life, that I was like, my mental health was at rock bottom. I just felt so low in myself. I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I can't. And I was like, if I don't try and like sort myself out now, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, I really don't, because like at that point in time, like, I just couldn't live my life. I couldn't. Like, I was literally every day waking up so sad because I just knew how preoccupied with food in my body I was. You know, I was like, am I going to have to live my entire life like this? Like, I couldn't be present with anyone or anything. Like, any meals out, going off on trips with like my boyfriend at the time, or like with my mom and my dad, like going out for food, or if there was food coming into the house, like even if it was like cupcakes or apple tart or something, like literally just not being able to sit there and enjoy it, like just being so consumed by it. Even if I was eating it, I was like, oh my god, I'm going to end up eating this entire thing and feel sick and feel ashamed and feel guilt and wake up and have to burn calories. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore. So I reached out for help, and I had a coach at the time, but I also reached out to someone who was a registered nutritionist as well. So I was working with both of them side by side. And I moved to Tenerife because I was like, I need to be alone doing this. I was very self-aware of the effects I was having on other people, like in my eating disorder, which I'm just like, I don't know, I'm really proud of myself for being that self-aware. also I just needed to be on my own. I was like, I need to process this by myself. Like, I need to be on my own doing this, and I just didn't want anyone around me. I wanted to be on my own. So moved to Tenerife, and I was like, I'm deleting my FitnessPal. I was writing, I remember vividly writing in my journal on the way over, I'm not doing this to myself anymore. I'm not living like this anymore. This is not what life is about. Like, I have the journal, like, vividly writing in it, and I was reading the book Ask and It Is Given. And that really, really helped me. Like, it really resonated with me at the time that, like, I just wanted this to be over. I wanted my preoccupation with food. Like, I really wanted it. Like,
so you like manifested.
I was like manifesting it.
Wow.
Like, I was like visualizing it. I was visualizing what it would look like on the way over. Before this was even, like, now this is obviously it's an evidence-based technique that I use now with my own clients, but like, I didn't know that at the time, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, and obviously that is important. You're obviously meant to go down the route, but isn't it amazing to see what worked for you at that time? Obviously it's not the best practice, let's say, or the most optimal way to go about it, but the power of your mind in that situation, okay, like the mind-body connection is insane. And at the root of eating disorders tends to be trauma. At the root of eating disorders tends to be mental health issues, low self-worth, low self-esteem, you know, and you can't just, like, a lot of people will think it's about the food, it's about the calories, and I'll fix myself when I stop binging, and I'll fix myself when I look a certain way, then I'll be able to stop tracking and whatever. But it's actually about going inwards, like going in deep. Like, that's where it begins, really.
And that's what I was told for so long. For so many years, you hear of, like, I was reading books on it, and it was like, in order to stop binge eating, like, you need to let go of the control, or you need to do mindfulness techniques, like go for a walk in nature or take a bath. And I was like, that's a load of bollocks. Like, that doesn't work. I was like, the bath doesn't work. Like, if anyone knows, you know, like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work because you resist that, the fear of it not working. Like, for me, it was like realizing, like, okay, these are all the things that I could try that I haven't tried yet, and they're my last resort. Like, that's my only hope right now, is trying the meditation, trying the journaling, trying to read books, trying to be more present, deleting my FitnessPal. Guys, it was the hardest thing ever, trying to trust in something you didn't believe in.
Like, losing that control, you know?
Like, it was just insane. Like, I remember getting to Tenerife, getting to my apartment, unpacking all my clothes, deleting my FitnessPal, waking up the next morning, bawling, crying how I looked, picking my body apart in a bikini, being negative towards myself, and then going to journal. And I was saying positive affirmations to myself, gratitude, being grateful for where I was, being present in where I was. And this was the start of it all. Did it take a long time for me to let go of tracking? I was still tracking calories in my head, obviously. I'd done it for years by default. I was still tracking, even though I deleted my FitnessPal, I was still tracking my breakfast, I was still tracking my lunch, I was still adding up calories at the end of the day. I was still waking up crying every morning about how I looked. But I was taking action towards that to change because I wanted to. So what I'm trying to say there is, it's not a straight road.
No, it's absolutely a journey. I just want to comment on that part, I suppose, what you mentioned about tracking calories. A lot of coaches will very much say that to eat intuitively, you have to track calories first. You have to learn calories and then you calculate them in your head. You absolutely don't, especially if you've got disordered eating or an eating disorder. Like, that is an absolute fucking red flag, and it irritates the fuck out of me. I do not count calories. Yes, I have spent years of educating myself around what's an appropriate portion size for my meal, but you can learn how to eat appropriately and work on body composition at the same time without tracking calories. And if it is something that's triggering for you, do not count fucking calories, because that is your ticket to control, essentially. That is your way of, and again, your ticket to control, your control that you might think that you're getting as a win, as a way to, you know, get the situation under control, to feel better in yourself, is actually going to make you feel worse in the long run, because control is an illusion. Like, we don't ever have control, and when we think we have control, we actually lose further control. So just to understand that it is something you need to transition away from, and it was a journey. Like, I didn't stop counting calories straight away. what I would have done is stopped counting calories rigidly first, and eventually I would have went cold turkey on it altogether. And I know some people can do that. They can go cold turkey. I've had clients very, very successful in doing that, and it's the release, it's the weight dropped off their shoulders. But some people do need to transition a little bit, and that's also okay. Like you said, it's a journey. It's a journey with your body image. 100%. It's a journey with intuitive eating. It's a journey with learning to trust yourself again.
That's what it is. It's learning to trust yourself, and like, exactly, like, calorie counting can help people come out of it. Like, you can do a phasic, like, move away from calorie counting. Like, that's what I'll do with some of my clients, where they're like, Kate, I'm actually not ready to let go of the control fully yet, and that's okay. You've done this for years. Like, technically I was still controlling in my head, even though I wasn't tracking, even though I went cold turkey on my MyFitnessPal. Like, obviously I was going to count up calories in my head. I've done that for years. So it's trying to move away from that, and it takes time. It takes time. It's practicing it. It's practicing mindfulness. It's practicing all these things that I thought wouldn't work until I went and did them. You know what I mean? So tracking calories is great for some people, but it's never a permanent tool, or should be a permanent tool. Like, what I'll do with clients who do want to lose weight and who don't want to track calories, absolutely, you can 100% do that without tracking calories. Also, like, for clients who have a really good relationship with food, who are happy to track calories maybe for like a month or so, it'll never go beyond that. Because you don't need...
I always say, you're not going to be 60 years old, like, counting your calories. So why not learn to eat intuitively now? Like,
honestly, guys,
why are we all growing up counting calories? Like, of course it's a tool that can be used for a period of time. If you do need education, and of course some people do need that education because they're not taught it ever in their life, but it should not be something that you lean on. It shouldn't be a crutch. I think there's that transitional phase as well that maybe a lot of people don't talk about, that we talk about, the kind of like, I'm healed now, and you're never fully healed. Like, when you're in your stress response, that can be your automatic knee-jerk reaction almost to try and control your food. And it's like, with that awareness, with reflection, with journaling, with slowing down, breathing, meditation, and regulating your body, you can actually prevent yourself. You can have that pause in between your automatic behavior to control or restrict, and to go into that and actually see, okay, well, maybe I just need to support my emotions here at the end of the day. Maybe there's something I need to do there instead.
Yeah, 100%, definitely.
But with the gaining weight, it's like the parallel of trying to gain weight, or accept that you may gain weight. Okay, you might not necessarily gain weight, but you may have to, obviously, if you are underweight, but then losing control of the thing that stops you from gaining weight. It's that simultaneous, I suppose a better word than parallel, but simultaneous thing that's happening to you. You're losing control, as difficult, well as losing your validation from your body, you know.
Very difficult. So this is the part that I found the hardest. Okay, it was like, okay, I can improve. On one side, it was like, I can improve my relationship with food and finally be done with this binge eating disorder that I thought would always be a part of me, because I just thought that was just the way I was. Okay. And on one side, it was I could improve my relationship with food and finally be rid of my binge eating disorder, okay? And on the other side, it was like, okay, you have to accept maybe that you could potentially gain weight and lose the identity that you attached yourself to for so long. And that was terrifying, okay?
Oh God, yeah.
Terrifying. So what I did to help me in this situation was I wrote out my values, and I was like, what are the things that I value the most? And when I wrote them out, it was being able to have a meal with family and friends and not think about the calories. Be present, be happy in myself, like within myself. Get my personality back. Like, all of the things that I valued most were more in line with improving my relationship with food and being done with my binge eating disorder and overcoming that. And on the other side of like the weight gain and the potential weight gain that might come with it, I accepted it, because I was like, okay, yes, it's going to be difficult, and it was very difficult. I had to keep reminding myself that, okay, yes, I'm going to gain some weight, but I'm not attaching my self-worth to how I look anymore. Like, my life comes from being able to go out and enjoy social occasions, being able to go to the gym and actually enjoy my training and not think about burning calories, like being able to go for a swim in a bikini and not give a shit what I look like. And that, to me, the more I reminded myself of that and actively did it, the more I realised, wow, like this is what life is about.
Gives you that fuel, that fire to kind of keep going.
It did, and it really got me through the days where I was like, oh my God, I'm gaining so much weight. And I was picking my body apart and I was like, do you know what? Like, you were able to go out last night and enjoy a pizza and eat it slowly and mindfully and laugh with friends. And like, I could wake up the next morning bawling, crying because I had a pizza and feel guilt over it. But I was more self-aware and I was able to regulate my emotions through meditation and realise that, okay, like it's not the end of the world. It's going to be okay. And another thing I realised was that my binge eating disorder came from a way of me using food as a coping mechanism to regulate emotions. So I used to get like an overwhelming emotion of loneliness and emptiness because my entire purpose was through dieting and having abs. Like that wasn't fulfilling me. You know what I mean? That wasn't like lighting my soul on fire. And I used food and my binge eating to mask emotions of loneliness, like low self-worth, just feeling sad all the time, depressed. I used food to help to get that relief, you know.
To suppress the emotions.
Yeah, just to get relief, you know what I mean? That was my relief in that moment. It was like an instant relief in that moment. That's what food did for me in that moment, and it was comforting in that moment. But then it was afterwards I was like, oh my God, like I feel like shit, because obviously it was a form of self-sabotage. So I then found that meditation, journaling, practicing gratitude, practicing positive affirmations, stop body checking, wearing clothes that made me comfortable, and being more comfortable with accepting that I was going to gain weight. Through all of these practices, I was able to nurture my emotions and really figure out like how I was actually feeling and regulate my emotions and be self-aware around them. And then when I realised that, I was like, okay, what are the other coping mechanisms I can use when I do feel these ways other than food?
Yeah, that's so powerful. Because we're not taught how to process our emotions. We're not taught how to regulate our body. And it's funny, we look at those kind of things and they look like, when you're so obsessed, when you're so consumed by an eating disorder, making room for meditation and slowing down and journaling. No, I've got 12,000 steps to hit today.
Yeah.
I've got to train 5 days a week. I've got to count my calories and I've got to meal prep. Do you think I've got time to fucking meditate? Absolutely not.
That was my mindset.
But
that was my mindset.
I think what was really powerful was two things there. One was the removal of yourself from the current environment that you were in, because if the environment that you're currently in is not supporting your growth and your healing process, then that's something that needs to be changed. And I did that as well. I very much isolated myself from people. I would have changed friendship groups. I just so happened to change job at the same time as well. And yeah, I would have really made a lot of physical changes in my reality as well as like mental changes. And another thing that you mentioned there was like your values. So my values became more about health. I realized very quickly that the progress picture, so the before and the after, I wasn't happy in the before, and I definitely was not happy. I was at my absolute lowest in my after. If you look at my after picture, when I was at my absolute leanest, like so thin, the same as yourself, like very miserable. Cold, very miserable, very unhappy, feeling very lost, feeling very lonely. You know, that kind of high that I was chasing of being in a smaller body, being my absolute leanest, having abs, was the lowest of the low that I could have possibly ever felt. And when I realised what was more important to me was feeling good than looking good. And what does feeling actually look like? It feels like a regulated body. It feels like being around safe connections. It means enjoying social occasions. It means getting back in love with food again and it not being this terrifying thing. Like, I've always been known as the person that loves Nutella, right? Always the Nutella gal, and I would have got jars of Nutella for Christmas as a joke and everything. But it would have became the thing that was my biggest fear, because imagine. I would have had a jar of Nutella and I would have eating the whole thing within fucking minutes. Yeah, easily. Minutes. And that would have been encouraged because I was in a smaller body. And, you know, obviously people didn't know at the time that I had an eating disorder. But it's just important to understand that health can exist at different sizes. Health does not look like a smaller body, and just because you're in a bigger body doesn't mean that you're unhealthy either. You know, there is this middle ground, and that's important to note for your own body image. Like my weight has fluctuated a good few times this year based on my environment, and this is the first year that I feel like I've fully been able to navigate it without really getting freaked out by it. And like my eating disorder was like the last of it was years ago, but it's still something that sticks with you. It's still 100%. Something you have to navigate. And it's important to understand that just because, and this can be a fearful thing as well, if you've been in a place where you're in the clear for a while and the thoughts come back up again, it doesn't mean that you're in your eating disorder territory again. Of course, it's something to be concerned about, it's something to be cautious of, and to just make sure you're calling yourself out, make sure to get support off someone to see maybe they could have a look in from the outside looking in, you know, they might be able to see something definitely. You can't. But to just understand that at the end of the day, your thoughts are just passing thoughts.
100%.
So if you're having, like I had multiple experiences throughout this year of loss and gain weight, being sick, changing environments, not having steps, being in Italy, being surrounded by lots of Italian food, lots of bread and oil, you know, and you're going to lose weight, you're going to gain weight, you're going to experience different fluctuations throughout the month of your cycle as well. And that's important to just acknowledge and accept and allow. And I think when we release our attachment to our worth and our weight and our measurements and before and after pictures, we can go with that and we're okay with that, and we're able to manage them. And like I suppose, how would you manage a bad body image day?
So bad body image day, I actually had one really bad one like last week, and I woke up and I was like, okay, I could body check right now and talk really negatively to myself and that's what would happen. No, I'm not going to.
Hell no.
You know, and this takes practice, guys. Yeah. This went from me in Tenerife waking up like screaming, crying at myself, calling myself every name under the sun. This takes practice. You know, it doesn't just happen overnight. So woke up and I was like, nope, not today. I'm not going to look in the mirror because I know I'm going to critique myself because of how I feel. This is a thing. It's a feeling. It's not actually how you look. You know, you can feel bloated. You might have had a really bad night's sleep. You might be really stressed out and you feel bloated and you just don't feel yourself. So obviously that can manifest into how you look. You know what I mean? So I will wake up and if I know that I feel like crap, I'm like, not today. Like, I'm not going looking in the
not
mirror
today,
today.
Satan.
No. So I will challenge myself. I'm like, okay, like it's hard. It's difficult. I challenge myself. I'm like, am I going to? No, not going to. Okay. So I'll get dressed and I'll make sure that the clothes I am wearing, I'll always put them out the night before and I'll just make sure that they're always comfortable. Okay. Then I'm like, if I'm not feeling myself in my clothes, I'm like, no, need to wear something a bit more comfortable. Get up, get out. I'm like, okay, recognize those thoughts that are going through my head. Like, I feel bloated, I feel like crap, I feel fat, do I need to lose weight? This is your monkey mind and it's going to okay? And it's just like, okay, sit there, recognize the thoughts, picture myself, a mini Kate outside my brain, looking in, being a self-observer, I mean, watching all these thoughts go on. And then I'm like, do I want to engage in them right now? Are they taking up this amount of my time already? That, like, this amount of time that we've already spoke about, like, this is my morning, you know what I mean? It's taking up my morning. And I'm like, no, like, I really don't want them, like, taking up my time. And I'm just, like, watching them for a few minutes. And I'm like, okay, getting on with my day now. And that's it. And that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and practice. And sometimes the thoughts can be extremely intrusive. You know what I mean? Like, they can be really, really intrusive of, like, if you wake up, feel bloated, it's like, oh, should I have the banana or not? Should I eat breakfast or not? Should I do this or... And then it's like replacing that sometimes with a positive affirmation can be good. So it's like, my body deserves this. So it could be like, should I eat breakfast or not before the gym? My body actually deserves this. Am I respecting my body by not eating? No, I'm not. Do I value my body? Yes. And then you have it and then off I go about my day. And honestly, that took a long time and it takes a lot of practice. But... again, like, knowing that feeling will pass, knowing I don't have to act on those thoughts You know what I mean? Like that I'm not allowing them to consume me, like that they're just thoughts, and I'll always give them space to breathe. I'll never argue with them. I'll just give them space and be like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
They're my thoughts.
And when you learn to regulate your body, you can actually do what's called a bottom-up approach. When we're in that situation, we tend to think top-down, which is control the thoughts, fight against the thoughts. Obviously, replace them with positive thoughts is helpful, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's actually more beneficial to just regulate your body first.
Yeah.
And that looks like using the tools. That looks like meditating. That looks like journaling. That looks like doing nice things for yourself, you know. Looks like wearing comfortable clothes. Yeah. Not putting yourself in a situation such as stepping in front of the mirror when you know that that's just going to be plain and simple self-sabotage.
Yeah, it is.
But I suppose it's really important to remember that this is temporary. It's a passing feeling, it's a passing thought, and you should not make decisions based on that, such as skipping meals, such as dieting, such as exercising more, doing more steps that day just because of how you feel.
Yeah.
And like the prime example is the stage of your menstrual cycle when you are post-ovulation, pre-menstrual cycle. You need more calories then, okay? And what we do is, because we feel shitter because we haven't got the hormones in our favour, because your hormones will drop just before your menstrual cycle, we feel worse. You're more likely to have lower body image, and what we'll do is we'll actually decrease our calories, which can lead to a binge and emotional eating when you actually need more calories from that stage of your cycle. So you actually need compassion from yourself at that stage of your cycle. You need support from yourself at that stage of your cycle. And what I always say is think of yourself as your own bestie. If your friend came to you feeling shit, if your friend came to you feeling low, you would support her. You would say words of encouragement. You'd say something to hype her the fuck up, and you'd see if there's something you can do for her. You'd buy her a fucking chocolate brownie.
Yeah,
do that for yourself, you know?
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on. That was such a powerful conversation. Honestly, it's like, it's really important that we do talk about this, because it's that vulnerability, like what you mentioned, that kind of shame that we keep that isolated, that like I did it as well. I didn't tell anyone about what was going on, but I also didn't know what was going on. Like, I didn't have the awareness back then. So the more we have these conversations, like if you know anyone that may be struggling, please offer them support. You know, it's like, even in like suicide training, we're told to ask the question. And it's the same with eating disorders, it's the same with mental health issues. You shouldn't hold back from fear of offending a person, or for fear of, you know, something that someone's going to say, or retaliation, because you may actually save that person at the end of the day. If someone had pointed it out to me, maybe I wouldn't have reacted as well at the start, but I probably would have been able to be like, oh wow, this is not a healthy situation, this is not normal. I didn't even know what an eating disorder was until I did my training and my nutrition course afterwards. Like that just shows how someone at that time would have been able to know. But also, I did not let anybody know, so that's not on anyone's fault. But, you know, that's where these conversations come in, and they can be really beneficial and really help people and really navigate this bullshit diet culture world once and for all.
100%,
but can you tell people where they can find you?
Yes, so I am _KCoaching_ on Instagram. My K Coaching's podcast is on Spotify. It's just the Kate Coaching podcast. Also on YouTube as well, under Kate Hewitt, or I'll come up as Kate Coaching as well. And I think that's everywhere.
Yay! Thank you so much. Everyone go give Kate some love. You can actually listen to us chat as well on her podcast. We did an episode there as well.
Yes, go listen to us. It was actually really, really good.
But yeah, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say there, just to finish off, like, you're not alone in this. And I felt so alone, and especially as someone who was going to train to be a PT, how could someone be a coach and coach other people while going through an eating disorder? Well, that's exactly what I did, you know. So like, just because you need help doesn't mean you can't help other people. That was one thing I was going through, like, you know, with my eating disorder and disordered eating. And it's nothing to be ashamed about or embarrassed about. And there's a lot more people going through it than you think. So for someone as a personal trainer, I found, and as like a health professional, I found it was even more embarrassing, because I was like, oh my God, like, no one else is going through this. So much more people are going through this than you think, and our industry in particular is saturated with it.
We're humans at the end of the day,
and
you know?
it's okay. Like, it's okay, but definitely I would say just reach out to someone. Like, reach out, get the help. The help is there. You're not the exception. You can get through this. No matter how much you think you're broken, you can get through it.
Yes, that's such a powerful word. You're not broken. You don't need fixing.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, thank you so much. Go give Kate some love.
Thanks, guys.
If you benefited from this episode or found it valuable, please share it, pass it on, tag us. Any ratings, subscribes, likes, all that jazz is very much appreciated. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.